Starting a little bit past the 8 o'clock hour due to some other commitments.
We had an interesting dinner with people that we'll talk about the things we learned from them, because we learned a great deal that we can impart to you about the election and their view of the election. And it's really important, polls are polls, but you got to feel it. You got to feel it. You got to feel it. So I'm looking right now at the big, giant, interactive map. I don't know even who does this. But of course, they never want to be. So now they have it at 50-50, Democrats and Republicans. So that would mean a Democratic Senate. That tells me the map is being done by Democrats. Because there ain't no way you're predicting a Democrat Senate right now. Now, could the Democrats hold on to the Senate? Sure. Could they get 50 or 51? Yes. Is that, you going to bet on that? I wouldn't. You better give me damn good odds for that. I would say right now, and we'll go through it in detail, the chances of a Republican House are 90%. The chances of a big Republican House are about 60. Big, like 30 votes, 40 votes. The chance of a Republican Senate, meaning 51, 52, 60, 60-40. Now, why? Why do I say that? We can go through individual states if you really feel like doing that, but here's what tells me that. By far the biggest issue is inflation. Nobody's voting for a Democrat on inflation. Because they did it. I mean, for all the garbage and the nonsense and all the Biden lies and the ridiculous double talk and Fetterman's blah, 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 blah. I mean, the reality is this inflation happened because Biden is spending money like a communist or socialist. 7 trillion, 8 trillion, 9 trillion, ridiculous numbers, wartime numbers. And worst part of it is he's reducing our military so that China can someday take us over. That might be what they paid for when they gave him all those millions. They are certainly not in any way ignorant. I'm talking about the Chinese. They know what they're doing and they know why they're doing it. So I would have to say that what we're talking about right now, and where do we find this map wrong? Okay, where do we find it wrong? They have New Hampshire as definitely Democrat. I tell you, the Bulldog's going to win that. Bulldog has come on like fire since the debate. They had one tonight, which I have not seen yet. I will do everything that I can to get a copy of it so that I can at least comment on it for you tomorrow night. So I would say that one is a big mistake for the Senate to say that that's going to go. So that immediately gets you to, if remaining, everything else remains the same. Bulldog wins. We take this. This comes from the Senate election interactive map.
270 to win.
Yeah, 270 to win. 270 to win. Don't count on it for the presidential either, because you'll probably lose. So everything remains the same. New Hampshire flips. There are several polls in which Bulldog's ahead by 1 or 2, and everything over the next three or 4 days should go his way. It would seem to me there are no more answers from the Democrats. I mean, they deny there's crime. They don't know what inflation is, so how are they going to fix it? People in New Hampshire are going to pay. I mean, people in New Hampshire are frightened, really, really frightened by the amount of money they're going to have to pay for heating oil this summer, this winter rather. They paid a lot this summer for what was going on, but they are really, really frightened about what could happen now. That is going to that is going to, in a very big way, in a very, very big way, that is going to now to the benefit of Bolduc. So now we head down to. So I don't get this one either. So they have Georgia going to Warnock. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Walker's going to win it. I mean, Kemp. Even if you assume that Kemp can't bring him in, if Kemp stays at double digits, and they remain within the margin of error, it's going to pull Walker in. And at the core, Georgia's a conservative state, and Warnock is a way out, crazy defund the police liberal, who has been exposed enough so that you get it. So now we're looking at 52-48. I'm just working off theirs now. They've got New Mexico, Colorado, and Arizona going Democrat. Kelly is ahead by 1%. Lake is ahead by about 4 or 5. Lake's going to win by 4 or 5. Kelly and Masters. Well, the independent candidate just endorsed Masters. That could throw that race right off. I'd say that is certainly not blue. That's a toss-up. So that gives you 52-48. Let's assume that Bennett holds on to Colorado. They hold on to New Mexico. They hold on to Oregon. They hold on to Minnesota. Of course, they will Illinois, Michigan, Virginia. That's about, believe it or not, well, here's another one that's a little crazy. They've got Florida as they've got Rubio in Florida as a toss-up. They are out of their minds. So I'm going to take this here, and I'm going to send this to Putin and to Xi Jinping and say, good job, communists. This map is totally ridiculous. I've been following this, from the very, very beginning. And I can tell you with great certainty that this map is a totally ridiculous picture of where we are now when on the generic ballot Republicans lead, where Republicans have just turned the corner on suburban women and now command about an 8 to 10 point margin with suburban women. They've always commanded a margin with men. And the Democrat candidates, at least the major ones, with the exception maybe of maybe Georgia, they're just not resonating. I mean, the black vote is not being engaged, really. Biden really doesn't know how to do it. And you're going to find this very hard to believe. Obama has never been able to engage it for anybody else but him. In fact, Obama has suffered some of the biggest congressional losses of any American president, both in office and then out of office. So if I were a Democrat, I would, I'd probably call on him because there's nobody else to call on. Absolutely nobody else to call on. The whole party is without anyone that can help them. And that's really kind of a shame because the party is depleted. Everybody else they're going to call on is a sleazeball that the public has pretty much figured out as a criminal. Hillary. Imagine selling Hillary around to try to sell the Democratic Party. My God, all she's ever been able to do is sell herself. Same thing with Biden, and the same thing with Obama, frankly. So this is going to get, I don't say that the House is a I don't say that the House is a shoo-in, but I will say that the House, the House is a shoo-in. I don't say the Senate is, but I will say the Republicans have a better chance of getting it than the Democrats do. So now we take a look at the House. So where are we for the House? Let's see. The House is really a question, I would say, among all the experts of not whether the Republicans will win, but by how much. And let's see what we're looking at right now. Right now, the communist version, meaning the very pro-Democrat thing here, this 270 thing, that has it 50-50 in the Senate, which is completely wacky. They have it at 223-200 Republican over Democrat. That'd be a 23-vote margin, which would be a healthy margin. I say it gets over 230 for Republicans, and Democrats go below 190. These House races are breaking very, very strongly for Republicans right now. And it's really on the issues because the abortion issue has kind of played itself out. Democrats overstated it. They got a lot out of it originally, brought a lot of these races closer. But then when the Republicans were able to get a little breathing room and put the emphasis on the Democrat excesses on abortion, they were even more frightening than the Republican, which is killing babies. Basically, Democrats, and most of the progressive Democrats, I say progressive because it's a retrogressive philosophy that goes back to Karl Marx in 1850. The reality is that I think they pushed it too far, and then people said, well, where do the Democrats want to go on abortion? And they want to kill 7, 8, and 9-month babies. I excuse me if I said it that way, but my view, both philosophically, morally, religiously, and scientifically, is certainly by 7 months, it's a baby. Certainly by 8. And 2 days before it comes out of the womb, it certainly is. Well, they're okay with killing it at that point. That's why they're losing the American people, because the Democrats go too far. They become completely inhumane, and they become completely consumed with their own power to the point of persecuting Republicans. They're now trying to start a government investigation of Musk taking over Twitter. I mean, they had no problem with him doing that with whatever they did before.
Thanks for joining us live with Mayor Rudy Giuliani. We are just 6 days away from the big midterm elections. Polling has gotten interesting here down the stretch, Mayor. One thing a lot of folks are asking about is this dynamic where obviously the economy is dominating in most parts of the country, but crime is also an issue in some parts, including right here in your home city of New York. How far off the mark are the Democrats on this issue right now? And is this something that you expect do you expect Republicans to win over a lot of independents on issues such as crime?
Well, in New York, different than a lot of the rest of the country, crime is the by far primary issue, which is the reason Zeldin has a very good chance of winning. And it's because of his firm, consistent position on crime, which he lays out and has been laying out for a year, removing Alvin Bragg, declaring an emergency to change the catastrophic bail laws, which are so favorable to criminals and so destructive to the men and women and children who are being killed every day because of them. There really isn't a sensible person in New York that can understand why anyone passed those laws. Just to give you an overview, I mean, there are probably about 7,000 to 10,000 more criminals in the street than when I was mayor. Those people would be in jail if I were the mayor, or Bloomberg, or somebody who wasn't in love with criminals. the Democrat Party has become, the criminal element has become a constituency of the Democrat Party. They want people in jail to vote. They want people to vote as soon as they can get out of jail. They know they're going to get the criminal vote because no bail. What about not locking people up when they violate parole and then they go kill somebody? There's a horrible situation in Buffalo, and a woman all over the media today, the day before, accusing Kathy Hochul of being a murderer. And it's not such a far-fetched claim. This is a situation in which a man had a record for 20 years as a career criminal. Part of his record was beating up and severely injuring his first wife, kidnapping wife and kid, first wife. Now he's married to a second wife, and or not married, we don't know for sure. And there's videotape of him beating the living daylights out of her. He gets arrested about 3 weeks ago in Buffalo, New York, home of criminal-loving Kathy Hochul. And the judge lets him out. This is a guy that just beat the living daylights out of this woman. Within a day, he kills her. Okay, that's what New York is living with, and that's why they're going to get rid of Hochul. Because her only answer to Zeldin during the debate is, why do you think crime is so important? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine being so vacant, so concentrated on like pulling in a couple of million for your husband out of the Buffalo Stadium, and what you can shake down COVID testing companies for, that you really don't even learn how to at least parrot the right answer? Why is crime so important? Because it kills people, idiot.
So, Mayor, we're just less than a week out now of the midterms. Some of the more respected political prognosticators continue to move even more House seats from the Democrat column to the Republican column. They cite crime and the economy as the major reasons why. We're talking about districts, Mayor, that Biden won, in some cases by up to 20 points, that are now being predicted to go red. What role does the Biden presidency play in this, what may be a massive red wave next week?
It should be, really, because Biden has been, certainly in my personal experience, the worst president America has ever had. No one's ever sold out America as much. No one has done such quick and unbelievable damage to our economy as he has. And no American president, I don't think, has been as brain damaged as he is. He went into the presidency as probably the dumbest man elected to the presidency. He was certainly the dumbest man in the Senate, and he's one of the dumbest men I've ever met. So that would have been a catastrophe anyway. He's also a pathological liar, going back to the time that he cheated his way through law school. What we didn't know, and I found out, and to my credit or detriment, put out, the family has been a family of crooks for 30 years. And he's the top of the chain. He gets 50% of all the bribe money that comes in. His son lays it out chapter and verse, except it's covered up by the crooked press that allows him to steal money, that allows him to have taken well over $30 million from our biggest enemy right now, China. That's absurd. What about the security of our country? How many decisions has he compromised because he's gotten disgraceful amounts of money from China? Suppose Kennedy or Eisenhower got $30 million from Soviet Union and hid it and lied about it. I think they'd be in jail, actually.
So thanks for joining us again live with Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Comment below where you're tuning in from, your name and where you're tuning in from. The mayor loves to hear where people are watching from. So we've been talking a lot about the Senate races this past week, Mayor. And of course, we're talking now about some House races. In Michigan, there's an interesting race, kind of being considered a bellwether race. More money has been spent here than maybe any other House race. It's between Tom Barrett and Alyssa Slotkin. And the interesting thing in this race, Mayor, you have Liz Cheney endorsing the Democrat, and you have Tulsi Gabbard endorsing the Republican. Where do you what do you think of some of the a lot of these independents moving towards the Republican column? Why is that? Is there anything beyond the obvious crime, the economy? Do you think there's something deeper happening
I do.
here?
I do. I think there's an abiding sense that I am sure of that Biden and the what do we want to call them? Socialists, communists, Marxists, unrealistic, silly liberals around him are destroying our country. They're destroying our history. They're destroying our culture. They're destroying our values. They're destroying our heroes. You mean if anything has an association with slavery, you've got to change its name except for Democrat Party. Nope, there's nothing that has more of an association with slavery than Democrat Party. They're the architects, not only of slavery, but of fighting for it and causing more American deaths than any other war because they fought for slavery. They carried it into the latter part of the 19th century and 20th century with members of the Ku Klux Klan sitting in Congress, some of Joe Biden's best friends. When he calls us systemic racists, it's really a massive act of psychological projection. He's the racist. He's the one who said, I don't want my kids to go into the jungle. He's the one who said that Obama was the first clean black to run for president. I don't know what that means. I mean, I don't know how I can say a lot of things about Jesse Jackson, but I think Joe Biden's got to explain to me how Jesse Jackson wasn't clean. Come on, Joe, why don't you explain that? Do you see today that he once again said that his son died in Iraq? And he was just corrected for that a week ago. That's a profound mistake. To not remember, or not be able to remember from just being reminded a week ago that your son did not die in Iraq. Your son's death was tragic, Joe. But we're tired of electing first an intellectual inferior, then a crook, and now a person with senility and dementia. Just because you make us feel bad that you had a terrible tragedy, 30 or 40 years ago. Many of us have had tragedies, but that doesn't entitle us, to run the country as mentally deficient individuals who can't remember where our son died, can't remember our wife's name, don't know which way to turn when we leave the podium, constantly refer to Kamala Harris as President Harris, and that is a joke. Joe, you're a sick man, and so are you, Fetterman. And if you don't resent the Democrat Party for doing this for us, there's something wrong. They're doing this to us. I mean, they have no regard for the dignity and value of public service when they put a man like Fetterman in who, not only doesn't he put sentences together that make sense, he just lies and lies and lies. Here's a guy that was asked 3 times to please explain why he changed his position on fracking, and he said he didn't, and it's on tape. Now, I don't know if he's a pathological liar like Joe or his brain deterioration is so great like Joe he can't remember. But just 2 years ago, he was a big opponent of fracking. Now he's a big supporter of it, and he can't explain the difference. Look, you don't have to be a genius to figure out why these two guys stumble, fumble, and sometimes utter things that are idiotic. They have significant brain deterioration and should not have the lives of other people in their hands. It's as simple as that. Joe Biden has already killed enough of us. He should be thrown out on the 25th Amendment. But the Democrats don't care about you enough to do that. They'll put a stumbling, bumbling idiot in the White House if they can control it.
Thanks again for joining us here on Facebook, YouTube, Getter, and stay tuned. We will be expanding to more platforms very shortly. Anton says hello from Miami. Andre says hi from Texas. Kevlar63 is checking in from Long Island.
All right close by.
Bill from South Jersey. Another Bill from Tennessee. Paul is in Florida. Andrew is in Norfolk. And we have countless others. We have CJ in Port Austin, Michigan. And look, folks, we can't get to everybody, but the mayor has a chance to review where everyone's checking in from. So continue to let us know. We have 3 in a row from Michigan, including CJ from Port Austin, Larry from Grand Rapids, and Steven from Fenton. Oh, and there's R. Fox from Bay City, Michigan. So you're very popular in Michigan,
Well,
among
now
other
that's a
places,
race.
Mayor.
That governor's race is a big race. I mean, it's hard to say who the worst governor in the country is. You'd have to have a heck of a contest between the communist and phony in California. You know what they all share in common? They're all hypocrites. They're all big lying hypocrites. They're all put people in confinement, basically put you in prison. Told you couldn't go out of your house, you couldn't go to have dinner, you had to wear a mask, you couldn't go get your hair done, you couldn't go to church, you couldn't do that, and they did anything the hell they wanted. I mean, Newsom went out to these fancy dinners when he told you couldn't go out to dinner, spending $2-3 on dinner. You got to stay home. Lightfoot went to have her hair done. No other woman in Chicago could get her hair done, and she said she had to look good. I mean, the serfs could all look bad. That was basically the way they treat you. Now, why people in Chicago, any of them vote for a Democrat, I can't figure it out. 50 years, Democratic rule in Chicago, and every weekend it's a question of do 5 die, 10 die, 15, 20? We have 50 shootings, 60, 70. 2 weekends ago we had 70 shootings. And they keep voting Democrat. Now, that's an issue of brainwashing. It's an issue of having psychologically manipulated. And probably a lot of it has to do with getting control of the schools, which now, I mean, it was bad enough they used the schools to turn a lot of kids into Marxists. Now they want to have them change their sex and pressure them to do it and not tell their parents. What?
Again, you're watching Mayor Rudy Giuliani live on multiple streaming platforms. Ask some questions. Let's see what questions you have for the mayor. He's always happy to answer questions. Over on Facebook, Janice says hello from North Carolina.
Hi, Janice.
Amy is in Minnesota checking in. John in Rhode Island. Dan is in South Jersey. Shumi Doodle is saying hi from Canada.
Shumi, what do you got to say? Shumi Doodle, that's a heck of a moniker.
Couple more. Renee is in Buffalo. Kelly is in Pennsylvania. Again, so continue to let us know. We're getting a nonstop stream of comments, people checking in all over the country.
Horrible killing. Kedra was the mom who was killed by her boyfriend, who was let out on Hochul bail. Wouldn't have been let out anyplace sensible in America. The guy had a long criminal record, had just recently beaten the living daylights out of her. Between the district attorney and the judge, they couldn't figure out how to keep her, insisting that Hochul's law required them to do it. And since it's happened, Hochul has said nothing about how she's going to change that law. So just watch out. It could be coming to you very soon.
Mayor, and what is it? Why are some Democrats, why do they seem to not understand where majority Americans stand on these sorts of issues? Cashless bail, something like this happens. How on earth are they not, the first ones up saying, look, that person should have been in jail?
Because they are a party without a soul, and they're a party without the ability to logically reason any longer. They've pandered for so long, they've lost their ability to make independent decisions based on facts, principled decisions. They've become corrupted at the top, and that corruption has seeped down into large segments of the party. I mean, you're talking about Black Lives Matter, and every weekend 5, 10, 15, 20 young black kids get killed in Chicago, and you don't say anything about it. You don't do anything about it. You don't recommend any change, except some communist extremist idea like get rid of the fathers. Black Lives Matter advocated getting rid of fathers. And then you got to wonder, how is it that all these corporations and baseball and football and basketball and gave money to them? Why don't they get their money back? Go sue them. It was a fraud. But it was a fraud that excited people to kill cops. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. Every single Black Lives Matter rally. Kill police officers, and you see what's happening. We're setting records for killing the finest among us.
And Mayor, let's talk about the spring of 2020, going into the summer. We're talking May, June, with these riots. Um, what did that tell folks who were maybe rioting and starting to break windows
Told they could do it. It told all of the criminals, or those prone to criminality in America, you can do anything the hell you want. If it's a property crime, nobody's going to bother you. That's why car theft is up in New York 132%.
As mayor, would you have ever allowed a police precinct to be overrun by?
I don't think you have to ask that question. As the mayor of New York, I reduced crime more than any mayor in the history of the city by a factor of about 5-1. I can't find a mayor in the history of America that's even come close to reducing crime the way I did. And I took over one of the most dangerous cities in America, much more complex and difficult than it is today. But I made the policy choices to change it. Now, here's the difference. The crime wave you are experiencing right now, it's not because of poverty. It's not because of anything else, but the programs and policies of the left wing of the Democrat Party, which dominate the party. It's because people like Soros, progressive, have put in 30 to 40 DAs, bought them off, and they allow criminals to walk free in your streets. 7 to 10,000 more in New York. Who knows how many in Philadelphia? Philadelphia has more murder than New York and Chicago combined because they have a Soros-purchased DA who is entirely corrupt. He doesn't do his job. He delivers criminals to the street. I don't know why they do that. Do they think that that's their constituency? I mean, you know, if the president or members of Congress were elected by criminals, they'd vote Democrat. That should be a pretty good reason why you should vote Republican. Another good reason is the Democrats won't change their name. They're the party of slavery. Every other name gets changed if it's associated with slavery, but the name associated the most with slavery is the Democrat Party. They fought a civil war over slavery. They didn't accept it for well over 100 years. They had Ku Klux members sitting in the Senate in 50, 60, and 70, some of Joe Biden's best friends. That party has a name that is disgraceful. If we analyze it that way, and if we're honest and true to the idea that we're offended by Robert E. Lee or Confederate soldiers, or what's more associated with slavery than the Democrat Party? It was the party of slavery. It was the party that fought the Civil War for slaves. And it's the party that resisted civil rights right down to the Civil Rights Bill in the 60s. Needed Republicans to vote for it to get it through. Biden's racist Ku Klux Klan friends wouldn't vote for it.
Barbara from Alaska says hello. So we are quickly approaching all 50 states. So please continue to comment, like, subscribe, share with friends. The mayor is the hardest working person in this business. I can promise you that. And as you know, each and every night. So please also visit RudyGiulianiCS.com. That's RudyGiulianiCS.com. Mayor, what does the CS stand for?
Common sense. That it's really, I think, very, very helpful in working your way through what's going on today, particularly because it brings you a lot of information that is censored. I mean, going back to the heart, we can go back and they're there. The original podcast that introduced the hard drive are there online. Just go to RudyGiulianiCS.com, hit subscribe, and you can find them. Just go back 2 years. I mean, all this stuff with the crime involving Joe Biden was known 2.5 to 3 years before he ran for president. And it was covered up by a corrupt Democrat Party at the top, and tragically, a corrupt FBI, which is tragic, and it breaks my heart to say that. No one's worked with the FBI more than I have, or more effectively, or knows what good FBI agents can be and are. But no one probably knows as well as I do how corrupt they've become and how much they've become really a state police. I mean, they're going to fit in there like with the Stasi, and they break down doors on innocent people and they let major criminals go free. They arrested all these Chinese for getting information, and they let the guy in the White House sit there with his 31 million from China that his son says he got half of. And meanwhile, the guy's caving into China every day. I mean, is there a chance we can ask if there's a connection between him giving up the Bagram Air Base 400 miles from China and getting unseemly, disgraceful amounts of money from China, which he has shared, and he's never denied it.
Thanks for joining us. We are quickly moving through this hour. It's hard to believe how fast it goes when we're live with Mayor Rudy Giuliani. So continue to submit your questions. We have some specific questions coming in on some races, Mayor. Joe Pinion, running, of course, against Senator Chuck Schumer in New York. Definitely an uphill battle. Joe knows this. Mayor, what is your take on the New York Senate race?
Joe Pinion should be our senator. He's much more qualified, much more familiar with the issues. Chuck has been there, I don't know, since Reconstruction, I think. He's been there so long, it's ridiculous. He seems to have no interest. The debate with Pinion was a disgrace. I mean, Joe Pinion actually did one of the best debates I've seen in a very long time, laying out very, very specifically what he would do as a senator that would turn New York around. And all Chuck has done is forget New York as it's getting destroyed. He represents the state with the most people leaving, but he pays no attention to us because it's all about Chuck being majority leader of a left-wing expressed to communism. He doesn't even defend Israel anymore. Israel, he lets the Democrats step all over Israel, talk about cutting them off completely. Do no business with them, kill them financially. We've got someone running in Pennsylvania who has said that what Israel does to the Palestinians is very, very similar to the killing of Trayvon Martin, who basically goes back and forth but will not take a position on whether Israel is an apartheid government. Does Chuck Schumer say anything? I mean, if a Republican started saying things like that, there'd be no doubt that the Republican leadership would condemn the person or take their committee assignments away. But Chuck doesn't have the courage any longer to defend anything that helps New York. He just caves in because he wants power. And the same thing is true of his own people, which is, I think you can look at my face and see what loyalty to me is one of the greatest attributes a human being can have. And the opposite of loyalty is Chuck Schumer.
Tessie says hello from Oregon. Chris says hi from Germany. Sandra, hello from Kentucky. God bless and protect Rudy.
God bless and protect the United States of America. Rudy, fine, thank you. But you make sure we protect this wonderful thing God has given us that the Democrats are trying to take away from us. I'm not saying that idly. Take a look at what they've done. Look at what they've done to your children in school. It's a crime. It's a crime what they've done to the children in school. And what they want to do to giving them doubts about their sexuality before they even know what sexuality is. Where does that come from? Communists who want to destroy us and make us part of one government. Why do you think Soros is putting all this money in? They don't even bother accusing me now of being an anti-Semite because I attack Soros. I pointed out that when I first attacked him and they stopped, you want to attack me as an anti-Semite, I'm a better Jew than he is. And when they attack me again, I'll explain to you exactly why I'm a better Jew than he is. This is a very, very destructive human being. There may be people that have done more damage to the United States. Biden is surely one of them. But Soros and Soros's money, putting those DAs in place, just like I save more lives than any mayor in New York City, he's probably cost us more lives through crime than any single individual I can think of. The man, for doing that, the man's a monster. For putting those DAs in, who ended up, one of his DAs, because of the laws that they passed, is directly responsible for the death of these people. And the mother of the lady who was killed in Buffalo says that Hochul is ultimately the murderer because she won't change the bail laws. It's one after another, after another, after another, after another. When do you wake up? And their soul was sold for power and money.
Thanks for joining us.
Maybe not that order.
Visit RudyGiulianiCS.com for his podcast and so much more. That's RudyGiulianiCS.com. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to like and subscribe the video and the mayor's channel. If you're watching on Facebook, make sure to share this video. And hello on Getter. Thank you for joining us. Ask your questions below. We only have a few minutes left here. This hour is flying by. And I guess time flies when you're having fun. But of course, we're also learning. And the mayor is sharing his thoughts on some of these races. We're getting some questions about Florida. Some people are asking, is there any truth to this polling that shows a tightening Senate race?
No.
Do we have any issues in Florida? Should we spend even one more second on the state of Florida?
Rubio's going to beat her by 8 to 10, and DeSantis will win by more than that. What they're probably trying to do is and maybe Mark will get mad at me for saying this because I'd probably like to have the money, but they're probably trying to suck our money away so that we don't win a couple of these races that they're really worried we could get to 54 or 55. But Marco has that one. And, the guy who's the most responsible for giving us this win is the mentally ill person in the White House. I played on my radio show today a sequence of about 5 things that he said yesterday that if that isn't a diagnosis of severe dementia, there's nothing that is. He once again repeated that his son died in Iraq after just being corrected a week ago. I can't remember even a week. Of course, last week he also introduced President Harris. He insisted there's no inflation. He just flat out said there's no inflation. I mean, Joe, it's 8%, 9%. It's the highest in 40 years. It's destroying our economy. It's making it impossible for people to afford really, and the wages you claim are a raise. Adjusted for inflation, it's about 3-4% decrease for everybody. That's the wages on their savings, their IRAs, their 401ks. You stole about 12% from them. So if they have 100,000 when you became president and Trump left, it's worth 88,000 now. He's stolen that from you, so he can give it to people that don't want to work, to create a communist, socialist society. They now want to expand Medicaid so that they can give out housing and food and cars and cell phones. And tell me what that has to do with health care. They said, well, it's important for health. Well, everything's important for health. Gee, having $1 million job would be great for your health. So everybody gets $1 million job. That's a Democrat. They have become, please understand this, and go, in case you think I'm like crazy, read Marx, read Engels, read Saul Alinsky, who taught Obama and Hillary, an American communist of 40, 50 years ago. It's eerie. Every single thing they talk about, they're doing, like destroying statues. If they were serious about the connection to slavery and all this, they'd get rid of the name of their party. It's the single biggest association with slavery is the Democrat Party. Single biggest association with the extermination of poor blacks is Planned Parenthood. And they give Planned Parenthood a fortune. A fortune. And Planned Parenthood now is in the business of gender alteration. Like, without telling you. Parents, what do you know if your kid's a boy or a girl? The state knows. We know if you are a boy or a girl. If we want more boys, we will brainwash you to be boys. If we want more girls, we'll brainwash you to be girls. And the parents, you've got nothing to say. No, zero. Show me your papers.
Thanks again for joining us live on Facebook, YouTube, Getter, and coming to a streaming platform near you in the near future. Comment below any questions you might have for the mayor. Again, we're just 6 days out from the midterms, so we're going to keep the focus on the midterms here for the next few days. But you'll want to stick around because even beyond that date, we are going to have so much exciting content with the mayor on a whole host and variety of topics. Mayor, moving to Georgia, the Senate race there is being closely watched. We're seeing a lot of last-minute accusations against the Republican, Mr. Herschel Walker. How much of an impact can those have a week and a half out?
I don't think they're going to make a great deal of difference at this point. They've been saturated with it. The last ones are probably so darn incredible. They don't, so coming so late. And then it turns out that Warnock's got a history that makes Walker, who of course denied it, but it makes Walker look like a pretty mild. And Warnock ran over his wife. He ran her over. That's not according to his wife. Beat the heck out of her. This is a minister? Because this is a minister who's for defunding the police. He's a supporter of Black Lives Matter, which is a communist organization that's against God. A minister. It's an organization that's an atheist. Black Lives Matter is dedicated to atheism. Dedicated to removing the child from the parent about 2-3 years old. Fathers are persona non grata, and mothers get separated at about 2 or 3. Now, who separates children at 2 or 3? Communists, Nazis, fascists. So they can brainwash them into a way of life and a way of thinking that is completely contrary to human nature and completely contrary to all the decent instincts and feelings that human beings have. So they want to make them, you have to make them immoral and amoral in order to give up the values that were taught to us as part of America and Western civilization.
Mayor, as we're approaching Thanksgiving, people will be gathering with one another, sometimes with differing political opinions. Let's start with this question, a little bit more specific than broad. How would you, what would you say, what advice would you give someone who may support President Trump and may be kind of pegged as a Trump supporter by the rest of the family, if they're being called certain things such as racist, xenophobic, intolerant? How can a Republican in today's GOP combat those sorts of accusations?
Well, first of all, I can't imagine. I'm talking personally now. You're asking me a personal question about family. And my family over the years has had differing political opinions. One section of they kind of overlapped. It wasn't like my mother's family. Father was a Republican Democrat. I had representatives of the Republican Party and Democratic Party in all parts of my family. And my family was exceedingly political. That's why I probably became interested in politics. My father was an old-fashioned conservative Democrat. My mother was an old-fashioned conservative Republican. They agreed on the danger of communism, and they both, at the early stages, supported Senator McCarthy, Joseph R. McCarthy. They broke with him over his excesses, but always believed that there was too much communist influence on our government back in the 30s and 40s that actually helped the growth of communism, because at the time that Roosevelt was making these decisions, he was probably in the same kind of state that Biden is in. I mean, the man was dying when he ran the last time and probably didn't know where the hell he was or what the hell he was doing. Can't be sure of that, but we know this one doesn't know where the hell he is or what he's doing. So I've always liked spirited political debate. We used to have them at holiday dinners, but now,
even when you were mayor?
No, not really. We had family dinners when I was mayor, but at that time by that time the Democrats had thrown them all out. I mean, if you could be a Democrat today with what these people are saying about taking your children away and giving money to Iran, taking money from China and Russia. I mean, the Bidens have taken money from China and Russia. I mean, come on. Forget Democrat, as an American. Isn't that unpatriotic? I mean, I know you're not supposed to question someone's patriotism, but you're also not supposed to take money from your enemies. You're also not supposed to give them back an air base that's 400 miles from China. There'll be an honest, decent American president who's going to need that. He's going to curse Joe Biden.
Carla says, I'd rather eat a Stouffer's turkey TV dinner than eat Thanksgiving with my leftist family members.
I can understand that. I mean, well, if you're going to call me a racist, I'm sorry. I'm not. I don't care who you are. You're not going to. I'm not going to have dinner with you. And I know I'm not. And I know if you call me that, you probably are. So why the hell do I want to have dinner with you? I know much better than you know the things I've done in my life. I know that I've saved more black lives than any mayor in history. You haven't. You want to call me a racist? You are. I don't want to be with you. I don't like racists, but for real. Not like Biden, who accuses America of being a systemic racist, and he's one of the biggest racists we've got. This is a question of projection. The racist party has always been the Democrat Party, from the institution of slavery to the Civil War to Reconstruction to opposing the Civil Rights Bill, and now the manipulation of blacks that have been left behind. The unbelievable, cynical, disgusting, horrible manipulation of them. And a lot of it done by their political leaders who leave them behind poor as hell and become multimillionaires. I have no problem naming them either. Charlie Rangel, David Dinkins, who I ran, all became millionaires. Harlem didn't become millionaires. Harlem was disappearing when I became mayor. I saved Harlem. They won't tell you that. I saved Harlem. I reduced the crime. I brought in the first national stores. I got rid of the street vendors. I made it possible for people to live there. I brought the property values up. That didn't happen with the black politicians who were representing Harlem becoming millionaires who were thieves, most of whom, are considered legends. They're not legends. They're crooks. Italians had them too. So did Jews. So did the Irish. It's not a matter of race. It's a matter of the fact that there are certain people who are dishonest and they take advantage. And unfortunately, the blacks were manipulated by people like that, the poorer ones, the ones who didn't have the opportunity for education. There's a vital, tremendous black middle class community. And like the Hispanic community is turning to the Republican Party, that black community is going to be turning to the Republican Party. Take a little longer because the manipulation was greater. Look at what's happening with women. Latest poll, Republicans lead with women in the suburbs by 18%. And you can only push people so far.
So just a couple of minutes left. Let's run through some shout outs here. Gail, checking in from Texas. Good show as usual.
Thank you.
Let's see who else is saying hi. Chime in. Let us know where you're tuning in from. We have Jim. Jim is watching from right here in New York City. Jacqueline checking in from the great state of Arkansas. Karen is watching from Ontario. Michelle checking in from Minnesota. Linda is watching from Long Island. John says hello from Pennsylvania.
Hello, John. You're in the state that I don't understand. One poll that I saw. How could Fetterman be ahead in a poll? The guy gave a debate where the only natural conclusion of it would get an ambulance and take him to someplace so he could, in a safe way, rehab from a very serious stroke. I went to read, here are the statistics. Any stroke, mild, whatever, 25% chance relapse. More serious the stroke, greater the chance, better chance it's fatal the second time. One of the many things you must do after a serious stroke, and he clearly had a serious stroke, he still can't talk, and it's 2 months later, 3 months later. You can't be under stress. So what are his greedy for power? I don't know about money. He already has a very rich family. No, the guy had a problem before he had a stroke. He was 50 years old. He was living with his mother and father. He's never had a job other than his 2 government jobs where people say, he's kind of lazy. He doesn't show up very much. And he was such a lousy mayor, the hometown newspaper just endorsed Oz. And I think it's a Democratic newspaper. Basically told you the guy is, it's an embarrassment. He's an embarrassment to the Democrat Party. It's only going to become an embarrassment to America. People of Pennsylvania, we got enough embarrassments. We got a nitwit leading the country. You don't think people see that in the world? You don't think I get questions about how can you have this man near the nuclear button when he thinks his son died in Iraq and he's told he wasn't and he keeps repeating it? He can't remember his wife. He keeps referring to Harris as President Harris. He gets lost in the middle of sentences like Fetterman does. At least, don't you think a person should be a sound mind before they take on the responsibilities for the lives of other people? Don't you think a political party that has even just a little bit of a soul would make sure that people, at a minimum, have a functioning brain? So please, deliver them a message. We can stop this, and you can save the Democrat Party. You can save it by voting against it, having it reform itself, and consider changing its name.
Thank you again for joining us. Under 5 minutes here to go, so please visit RudyGiulianiCS.com. That's RudyGiulianiCS.com. And Mayor, the CS stands for?
Common sense.
And you can also, please, here on YouTube, Facebook, Getter, like and subscribe the video, share with friends. Let's give you one homework assignment ahead of tomorrow night. Try and invite one person to tune in this time tomorrow night. We'll be a little bit earlier, 8 p.m. tomorrow night. If you can each bring one person onto the channel tomorrow night, we could double.
We can keep growing, and we can keep growing this vehicle for protecting our First Amendment, because we and you can talk about anything we want. We don't have that misinformation 1984 communist office that the Bidens have, where they call social media and say, cut him off, cut off the political enemy, cut off the political enemy. This is consistent with what happens when you become too socialistic, when you become too communistic, you become dictators. Look at what happened during the pandemic with the governors you got to now vote out of office. Like Whitmer in Michigan. I mean, she became a tyrant, except for her husband, who could go on any vacations he wanted to go on. Hochul was and wants to be a tyrant, but her husband's part of the concession company that's going to make a fortune on the new stadium that she's spending 2.5 times more on than she should. But her family will become wealthy as a result of it. Why do you let them take advantage of you that way? The Democrat Party. Why? Kick them out. They'll come back. And I'm really beginning to believe they really should change their name. That association with slavery is just too much.
So thanks again for joining us. We are live here. We're running out of time. We want to Mayor, our chat room is becoming so busy. We're having to add additional moderators who are viewers and people who...
Well, first of all, I want to thank all the people joining. I appreciate it because there's a purpose to this, and it's to make sure that the First Amendment is protected in this country. And number two, I want to thank the people who are taking on the responsibility of running those, because that's some degree of work and a heck of a commitment. Thank you.
So that's Jet, you, Scotty, Daryl, Molly, and now we have Dez, Stephen, and Ward. Thank you all, and a heartfelt thank you from the mayor for helping grow with us as we enter our final minute. We have exactly a minute and a half.
Well, I'm going to ask you to do a couple of things. First, go to Rudy's Common Sense. That's Rudy'sCS.com, and take a look at the most recent podcast, which really involves both the rally for Lee Zeldin last night and a discussion with my most loyal constituency, the people of Staten Island, who, if they vote the way they voted for me, will put Zeldin over the top. And I'm trying to get them to do that. Also, on Thursday night, we're going to have like a marathon. We're going to start between 5 and 7 on bbsradio.com, bbsradio.com, and we're going to do a bunch of predictions about the elections. And then we're going to have a free-for-all with people calling in, making live calls. That's Thursday, tomorrow night, between 5 and 7 on bbsradio.com. And then we'll be here at 8 with our, hopefully, every day we do this, we expand and expand and expand and expand all over the country, and we're starting to go all over the world. And that is to get out the truth. Our objective mostly is to get out the things that you are not told and not allowed to discuss in a lot of other places, becoming most other places, by the authoritarian Democrat state that we live under, which we're going to get to have a big, big say in next week. At this time, hopefully, we're going to have fought back the right way at the ballot box.
Thank you, good night, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, good night, and we always implore you to make a prayer tomorrow morning when you get up and say, God, thank you for allowing me to be in America and an American.